Okay, one of the things that people get intimidated by is knowing what questions to ask if you're trying to find an advisor or considering if you need an advisor at all. So, the single best secret question that I think you should ask a potential advisor is, what questions are you going to ask me? Um, so it's not really a secret, but the reason that can be so powerful is if you ask that in advance, you can request a list of questions from someone to say, hey, send these to me ahead of time so I'm ready to answer them. And that will do a lot of things. One, it will give you a sense of how prepared someone is with the process, how structured it is. Being very structured might be good, but if you're not someone that likes structure, maybe a more conversational approach is okay, but it's good to know ahead of time. If you're an engineer-minded type person or kind of nervous if someone doesn't follow a specific process, if you ask someone that question, hey, what questions are you going to ask me, and provide the questions before our meeting or conversation, and they can't or won't do it, that's probably saved you some time and energy. So getting a sense of what questions they'll ask you is huge, just in how someone responds or doesn't to that question. In addition, the types of questions they say they're going to ask you can tell you if they are very holistic in their planning and advice, or if they're very specifically focused on investments or on insurance or on career planning or a business, if that's part of your situation, or social security planning or real estate. Whatever the list of questions they provide you or they ask you in conversation, that gives you a great sense of where someone's leaning. So I find that because I know this stuff inside and out and I like talking about it, I could probably observe an interaction with a potential advisor. And without knowing anything about what's been proposed or going down the road, we can get a sense of how thorough someone might be. So if you say, hey, I'm about to retire, I have a rollover from my current or maybe former 401k. If someone says, I can help with that, here's how I would invest it, etc., without asking you a bunch of questions, that tells you they are very focused on investments or potentially insurance vehicles, depending on how they invest the money. But if they're not asking you a bunch of questions about how much money you'll need out of there, your whole overall situation, a lot of background info, there's not a lot of comprehensive planning. It's not first focused on the investments, which could be what you need and all you need. But that's good to know going in. And this is hard to assess if you're a little uncertain or uncomfortable about asking questions. So a lot of what I aim to do is to help you feel more comfortable asking questions, or at least realizing that if you ask questions, even if you don't feel comfortable and you don't like the response, the person on the other end doesn't make you feel like they're listening, that's okay. Keep looking. There will be other advisors, or maybe you don't need one at all if you don't find the right person, but depending on your comfort level. But if you're nervous about the process, be ready to say no, or at least not now, and keep looking for someone who you at least feel like, just like you would do with a doctor or other professional, that you're working on such a personal thing. Don't hesitate to keep looking until you feel there's a connection and a fit. That's not the only thing you need, but that fit and someone who's listening is critical. So don't ignore those intuitions. So the number one question I would ask if I was looking for an advisor or coaching someone is, what questions are you going to ask me? So then some of the questions that you might follow up with in that conversation or maybe provide in writing, or things like, tell me about your process, or what is your process like, which is similar to what questions are you going to ask me. What types of things, areas do you help me with? Again, these are very open-ended, not yes or no, because if you say, do you help with comprehensive financial planning? Most people say, yeah, of course I do. But if you leave it more open-ended, you can let people define what that is. Because if you say, what types of things will you help me with? And they say investments, insurance, retirement planning, then you can follow up with, what does that look like? What kind of tools do you use? How do we work together? How many people can you provide me, basically references or current or happy clients that you've worked with and helped. What makes a good relationship for you, Mr. and Mrs. Advisor? So that tells them who are they looking to work with, because even if they seem great to you, but they describe a situation that seems much more complex or much simpler or with a lot more money or a lot less money than you have, that could throw you off. You probably don't want to be the smallest, simplest situation that you might not get the attention that you hope. If you're the most complex or highest net worth client, that could be great. You could get a lot of attention, but you want to make sure that the person is qualified and ready to serve you the right way as well. You can also ask, how do you charge for your services? Why did you decide to do it that way? Because there might be what I would call more old-fashioned ways, commission-based, et cetera, that the reason someone chose that is because that's what was common when they started 15, 20, 25, 40 years ago. And so it might not be that they're necessarily choosing that compared to what else is out there. They chose it a long time ago when that was the main option. And I've seen advisors do a great job with what I would consider somewhat outdated business models. That probably happens in many professions in the world, where people are good at one thing and they stick to it even when it's not the best practice for newer professionals. What's your contingency plan? So hopefully you choose one. If you talk to someone, you hope they have a fairly successful established business where they'll be around. But if something happens to them, if they're unexpectedly disabled or pass away, who is going to help you? Is there a plan in place? Doesn't have to be, but that's just good to know, because that would speak to someone who's thought through all the risk factors for themselves, and for you, more importantly, the risks to your ongoing help, if that's what you're looking for in the event of an unexpected tragic circumstance for them. You can also ask, what questions should you ask? Because that's a good catch-all. And then one last comment is, don't be afraid to bring someone with you or have someone else involved in the conversation. I see this a lot in my family. We have older family members that there's usually someone else, a child or a spouse or niece, nephew, that goes to doctor's appointments. I know a lot of people, that's common, to be your advocate, another set of eyes and ears. Not that we don't trust the professionals, the doctors, et cetera, but sometimes as we get older, it's hard to keep track of all these things, remember and write things down, and make sure the doctor knows of all the different circumstances regarding the patient, right? So it's a lot easier to be objective if it's not your life, your health, your money. So especially if you're all uncomfortable and don't really enjoy the process, bring someone to be your eyes and ears. Even if you don't think your family member, friend, trusted contact that come with you, even if they aren't an expert, they can provide another perspective. And so if you ask a question and you think you get a good answer, but your friend, family member says, I didn't really like the way they answered that, or they seemed like they weren't respectful of you, or they seemed to talk down to you, or I thought they were great, that would help kind of balance out your decision making. And a lot of times, I think a second set of eyes and ears can sort out or pull out if a professional is threatened or defensive, or because hopefully someone's going to say, well, okay, tell me about the relationship. How can I help best include this person? And a little bit of more shining light on what you are going to go through should not be a bad thing. Certainly there's privacy concerns that we have to be careful of in terms of sharing information, but if you've authorized this person to come with you, not a big deal. So that is all I want to get out, and I'm going to try to be more consistent with sharing case studies, ideas, and again, I'm a practicing advisor, but I'm happy to help you go through the process of choosing an advisor or sort out your circumstances. So don't hesitate to reach out, and just remember the number one secret question that you can best get to qualifying or disqualifying an advisor in the process of looking for that fit is, what are the questions that I should ask you, Mr. or Mrs. Advisor? Thanks, and we'll see you next time.